Welcome to this special broadcast, Prime Minister Modi in Brunei. I am Sakal Bhatt. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a visit to Brunei Darussalam on September 3rd and 4th, that is today and tomorrow. His first stopover of his two-nation tour of Southeast Asia. Remember, this is the first ever bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Brunei, as both nations mark 40 years of diplomatic ties. We will be examining the significance of Prime Minister Brunei visit vis-a-vis Brunei being an important and an integral part of India's Act East policy construct and also the Indo-Pacific vision roadmap. We will be joined by subject experts and former senior diplomats on the show to talk about Prime Minister's Brunei visit and also getting live visuals from Bandar Seri Begawan on Prime Minister Modi's engagements of the day. So let's begin. So India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Brunei Darussalam in the first ever bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister earlier today. Upon his arrival in Bandar Seri Begawan, Prime Minister was accorded a ceremonial welcome. And in a special gesture, the Prime Minister of India was warmly received by the Crown Prince Haji Al Bolkiah at the airport. The historic visit of Prime Minister is taking place as the two countries are also celebrating 40 years of the establishment of their diplomatic ties this year. It's important to reiterate that Brunei is an important partner in India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. India and Brunei enjoy a very friendly relationship which is marked by mutual respect and understanding on bilateral and multilateral issues. The two countries are also linked by history, they are linked by culture, and they are also linked by tradition spanning a millennium. Prime Minister Modi will be holding talks with the country's top leadership and also discuss various ways and means to boost bilateral ties between India and Brunei. Prime Minister Modi said he was looking forward to strong ties with Brunei, especially in boosting commercial and cultural linkages as he arrived in Brunei earlier today, the visuals of which we showed you earlier, and these are the stills. In a post on platform X, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Landed in Brunei Darussalam, looking forward to strong ties between two nations, especially in boosting commercial and cultural linkages. I thank Crown Prince His Royal Highness Prince Haji Bolkiah for welcoming me at the airport." Also upon arrival at the hotel, Prime Minister Modi was received by Indian community members, around 300 strong members of the Indian diaspora. They warmly welcomed Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi, rooting for him and chanting Modi Modi slogans. Prime Minister embraced two children, gave autographs and reciprocated their warm gestures towards him. Prime Minister Modi also interacted with children as he received a warm welcome from the members of the Indian diaspora in Brunei earlier today. Let's quickly go live across to Seri Begawan, Bandar, where DD India's Munmun Bhattacharya joins us live from the very important spot there. Munmun, over to you. We've been, broadcasting your reports. There is certainly a palpable amount of excitement and overwhelming response that we saw earlier today upon the arrival of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, not only by the top establishment of Brunei, but also Indian diaspora. Over to you, the significance of this visit.
Right, Sakal. I am currently at the new Chancery building that will be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a short while from now. There are members of the Indian diaspora who have already gathered here. There are around 250 Indian community members here. And architecturally, if you see this place, and it is a mix of both modernity as well as tradition, because wall clearings here are made of Kota stone, and there is also Indian culture reflected here in the decor. There will be a lighting of lamps shortly. So we expect the Prime Minister to arrive here in another 10 minutes or so. And after that, the Prime Minister will be headed to the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. But since you were talking about the excitement of the Indian community, we saw it with our own eyes, and the Prime Minister met with around 300 members of the Indian community. He embraced two children. He gave autographs. He shook hands with the elderly. There were women who had lined up. They were all very excited to meet the Prime Minister. I got to speak with some of them before the Prime Minister came, and the menfolk were equally excited. So yes, palpable excitement here. And to tell you a little about the Indian community, there are around 14,000 to 15,000 members of the Indian community. This is a very tiny state. The population here is of less than 5 lakh here, but the Indian community is respected, especially the Indian professionals, for the work that they've been doing and how they're contributing to the economy here as teachers, doctors, engineers, IT professionals. There are also around more than 50% of the Indian expatriates are working as unskilled workers and semi-skilled workers in gas and construction industries and textiles and retail, in construction, like I said. So a lot really is happening over these 2 days, chock-a-block with engagements. Today is only day one. Tomorrow will be day two. After this event of inauguration by the Prime Minister, like I said, will be headed to one of the most iconic mosques here. There too, he will be meeting some members of the Indian community who will be there welcoming him.
Also, in terms of deliverables, what is expected out of this visit? Munmun, if you could just quickly underline that as well.
Yes, so tomorrow, Sakal, there will be delegation level talks, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting Sultan Haji. This is a monarchy, and Sultan Haji is one of the longest running absolute monarchs in the world. His coronation had happened in 1968. So you can imagine that for 56 years, he is the reigning monarch of Brunei Darussalam. So there will be an audience with him, and there will be an audience with other royal family members as well. And a banquet lunch will be hosted by him for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On the deliverables, we expect some forward movement on the defense front, because it was said by the Ministry of External Affairs, a curtain raiser briefing. There it was said that some forward movement could be expected on establishing a joint working group on defense, because defense is a key component in the relationship. There are reciprocal naval visits, naval ships visits, and Coast Guard visits, and Brunei Royal Navy visits have also taken place. So a lot of focus, and you can see the drums beating. You can hear the sounds of drums beating already. I think they're prepping up for Prime Minister's arrival. But yes, in terms of space cooperation, we are expecting an agreement to be signed, because the ISRO in 2000 had established a telemetry tracking and command station here. And with that, it tracks and monitors the eastward movements of all its space-related launches. And India reciprocates by training the space scientists of Brunei Darussalam and also with space research. So yes, a lot to expect going forward. But here the mood is already building up for the Prime Minister's arrival.
Yes. And before we leave you, Munmun, a quick one on this being very significant for India in terms of this being an outreach as part of India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific broader construct, and equally important as far as Brunei is concerned.
Yes, Sakal, from 2012 to 2015, that is for 3 years, Brunei Darussalam was the coordinator in ASEAN for India. So it did play a role in bringing ASEAN and India together. 2024 marks a decade of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Act East policy, which is, of course, a more vibrant form of what we saw earlier, the Look East policy that was launched by the Narasimha Rao government. But over the last 10 years, particularly, we've seen that how India has reached out to these countries in the South China Sea who are fed up with the belligerence of China. But Brunei is a silent claimant to South China Sea. It doesn't run into conflict with China on this, but India has been reaching out to various countries. And in terms of Act East policy, this is significant also given the strategic location of Brunei, because it is at the center of the Indo-Pacific Circle and is surrounded by countries like Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, to name a few.
All right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Munmun Bhattacharya of DD India, for joining us live from Brunei. Thank you. And as Munmun already reiterated, there is a lot of excitement that has gripped the Indian community members in Brunei as they earlier welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi to their country. Take a look.
Indian diaspora is really very, very pleased and very, very happy that you are making this one. And let us hope good things will come out of this visit.
So excited to see our Prime Minister. He is the Iron Man of our nation. Surely he can bring change to our nation.
Prime Minister Modi is a very different person. He has made his presence felt globally.
Let's quickly welcome our special guest on this very special broadcast, Ambassador TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Singapore, joining us, and also in our Delhi studio welcoming Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj from School of International Studies. Thank you very much, Professor and Ambassador Raghavan. Such a pleasure talking to you. Well, this is important and unprecedented and historical in many ways. The first bilateral visit paid by any Indian Prime Minister, in this under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The significance of this. Ambassador Raghavan.
Pointed out, the visit is optically powerful because this is the first bilateral visit. Earlier visits by Indian Prime Ministers have taken place in the context of ASEAN meetings taking place in Brunei. But the fact that the Prime Minister has chosen to travel to Brunei to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Brunei is a significant step. Because it is culturally and civilizationally and historically close to us, it is very much part of ASEAN. It is located in the center of Southeast Asia. There is great potential for cooperation in frontier areas such as space technology, apart from building up potential in commercial and economic exchanges. For all of these reasons, Brunei is an important partner for India, and therefore the visit has great significance.
Okay. Professor Bharadwaj, your opening remarks in terms of this being significant for India as its Indo-Pacific vision roadmap and also the Act East policy outreach.
No, certainly it is very significant geostrategically and geoeconomically. But since you can see the way the Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone there and he's just going to greet the people, you can see the bondings between the two countries and the people and the Indians they are living, because we have very strong historical, cultural linkages where it starts from the Chola dynasty, you can say, or before that also, because all the ethnic, or you can say the religious origins you can find from the Indian, either the Buddhism or Hinduism and the Indo-Islamic cultures, all that has been celebrated today in Southeast Asian countries, or Brunei had deep linkages with India. But since in the present context we are looking more over these countries into context of the emerging geostrategic strategies, what we said, that Indo-Pacific strategy, where these all Southeast Asian countries are very critical, keeping the way that the Chinese has come out in South China and Chinese has come out in Southeast Asian countries, and the way that India is building its strategic partnership with the global powers like United States, Japan, Australia, and particularly bringing all these Southeast Asian countries into its fold. The second very important aspect that I do find, because India is aspiring to become a leading global economy or it has been demonstrated we are targeting to become the 5 trillion economy. There, Brunei and all other Southeast Asian countries are very significant keeping the energy cooperations, because Brunei, we are already having hydrocarbon trades with Brunei. We can expand it. But what is most important aspects that we are looking, and India is looking, with the green technology, green energy resources. And there are a lot of initiatives had been taken to connect, particularly while I'm talking about Australia, Indonesia, Singapore. They're already having a transmission corridor for energy. There, Brunei can also become a partner to connect with India. So these are the very significant steps that can be taken to have what India is looking for, to have a Viksit Bharat 2047. So in keeping these backgrounds, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that is the first ever visits after diplomatic relations, is very significant, and we are also celebrating the decades of India's Act East policy, because India's Act East policy has certainly 4 core elements that is connecting. One is, of course, culture, that I already talked very closely. Second is, of course, the connectivity, the physical connectivity, and where we have already connected with Southeast Asian countries.
All right, we'll continue our conversation, but before we go to those very beautiful visuals of how the Indian diaspora welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we can have a look at these visuals once again on our screens here. This was the Indian diaspora, which of course you would agree, sir, is a very integral and important element, the contribution of Indian diaspora as far as the bilateral ties between the two nations is concerned. So imagine a country like Brunei, small but powerful, and self-sufficient and prosperous, and there you have a little India in Brunei itself. Your thoughts?
Of course, we are closely associated. I said that we are closely linked. Culturally, we are linked. Many of the Southeast Asian countries, they speak South Indian language, Malayali, then Telugu and Tamil, and then all these languages that people are widely speaking. There you can find masala dosa and the old dhokla and all these in these countries. So we are deeply culturally linked with with these Southeast Asian countries. And the way people are greeting, you can see that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he is very affectionate with the kids. He is taking, hugging them and meeting the old age people. Itself is a good gesture.
Let's take this thought to Ambassador Raghavan, sir. So fostering greater cooperation. Ambassador Raghavan on the screen, please. India's strategic footprints as far as Southeast Asia is concerned and Indo-Pacific region is concerned. This is very significant from the Brunei point of view, from their perspective as well, because we've seen they have supported India. They have been big supporters of India at various multi-foras and in multilateral institutions.
Each of the Southeast Asian countries is conscious of the fact that a large part of their economic and commercial relationship depends on China. At the same time, they are deeply concerned about Chinese political and maritime assertion, and they seek to balance that. They don't view their overall foreign policy or strategic role, strategic space as being a zero-sum game between China and India or China and other powers, but would like to develop closer relations with India as a form of balancing. I think in that context, we can very clearly see how important Brunei itself gives to this relationship because of the fact that over the years, India has emerged as a trusted partner for all Southeast Asian countries, in part because of the strong bilateral relations which have been forged, and in part also because of the India-ASEAN relationship growing stronger over the years. So I would say that Brunei, although it is not one of the bigger Southeast Asian countries, it is very much a part of Southeast Asia, and the fact that the Prime Minister has chosen to make a bilateral visit there is in itself very symbolic and very important.
How do you see this? Because Brunei is also one of those nations which they say has brought India closer to the ASEAN construct as the country coordinator going back to 2015 and 2012. They played an important role as in terms of a big bridge between ASEAN and India.
Yes, Brunei has played a role in strengthening India-ASEAN relations. But there too, let's not forget that the major heavy lifting was done by countries such as Indonesia and Singapore, and to an extent by Malaysia in the past. I think it is important that we pay more attention to the smaller countries in ASEAN, such as Brunei, such as Cambodia, such as Laos, which otherwise get overshadowed by the more significant players in the ASEAN and Southeast Asian context, such as Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. So I would say the fact that the Prime Minister has chosen to make a bilateral visit, not combining it with a multilateral occasion such as the ASEAN meeting, is very good for India-Brunei relationship, for the India-Brunei relationship looking forward.
Okay. Why and what makes this important in terms of messaging in Global South and otherwise also? We're going to talk about that as well. But Ambassador Raghavan and Professor Bharadwaj, I would request you to please stay with us. We're going to play some more reports to understand the significance of this visit further and what both countries bring to the table for each other. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brunei Darussalam is the first ever bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the country, which we told you. And the visit coincides with the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Brunei. Now, Brunei, it's important to understand here that it's a very critical partner, an important partner in India's Act East policy and its broader vision of the Indo-Pacific outreach. DD India's Munmin Bhattacharya, she's reported from its capital city, Bandar Seri Begawan, on what to expect from the visit. Take a look.
The relationship between India and Brunei has steadily evolved, with defense cooperation being a key component. The exchange of naval visits and the participation of Bruneian nationals in various capacity building courses in India underscore the growing defense and educational ties between the two countries. Trade relationship is important, especially in the context of India's energy security, because every year India imports crude oil worth $500 to $600 million from Brunei Darussalam, which is rich in oil and gas reserves. Both sides also cooperate in space and health sectors and promote people-to-people exchanges. The presence of a vibrant Indian diaspora in Brunei, particularly in the oil and gas industries, construction and healthcare sectors, further strengthens the bilateral relationship. Ties between the two countries are important even from a regional perspective. Brunei Darussalam was the country coordinator for India in ASEAN for 3 years, from July 2012 to June 2015, and played an important role in bringing India closer to ASEAN.
As India continues to implement its Act East policy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brunei Darussalam is expected to reinforce India's strategic footprint in the Southeast Asian region, fostering greater cooperation in key sectors and also paving the way for a more integrated and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmin Bhattacharya from Brunei Darussalam for DD India.
And as India's Prime Minister is in the city of Bandar Seri Begawan, we take a look at what makes it so very special. Munmun gets us more in this report that follows.
The capital and largest city of Brunei Darussalam is Bandar Seri Begawan. The city is a financial and administrative center and is known for a river port called Muara Port.
Bandar Seri Begawan's landmarks include the gold-domed Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, which is among the largest mosques in Southeast Asia, Istana Nurul Iman, the 1,788-room Royal Palace, and the Hassanal Bolkiah National Stadium. Alongside the modern city is an older settlement called Kampong Ayer or Water Village. Here, people live in houses raised on stilts along inlets of the river. A network of raised wooden walkways connects the houses. A water village probably existed in this region as early as the 600s. The modern city became the capital of Brunei in 1920, and until 1970, it was called Brunei Town.
Bandar Seri Begawan was once predominantly an agricultural trade centre and a river port. But it suffered extensive damage during the Second World War, after which it was largely rebuilt and became the country's financial and administrative centre with a port at the mouth of River Muara. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Bandar Seri Begawan for DD India.
Moment from now, in some time from now, Prime Minister Modi will also be visiting the Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Bandar Seri Begawan, from where we showed you this report. And the mosque built by and named after the present Sultan's father, who had said he was influenced by India's Mughal architecture, particularly the Taj Mahal. The mosque is often considered as one of the most beautiful mosques in the entire Asia Pacific. In fact, it is a place of worship for the Muslim community, a major historical site and a famous tourist attraction of Brunei. Munmun Bhattacharya reports from Brunei. Take a look.
The Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque takes its name from its builder, the father of the present Sultan, and his predecessor, Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin. He was the 28th Sultan of Brunei. His vision of a grand mosque took 4 years to build. It was finally completed in 1958. The design was heavily influenced by Mughal architecture in India.
We have had very deep historical linkages with, as you would know in history, this island was known as the Borneo Island, and Indian sailors, traders, merchants, pilgrims, preachers, Buddhist pilgrims, they had been sailing these waters. And from the pre-modern, pre-medieval and pre-Islamic times, there have been very deep ties between India and Borneo Island, the residents of this island.
Only the finest materials were used in its construction: Shanghai granite and Italian marble, stained glass and crystal chandeliers from England, fine carpets from Saudi Arabia, and a dome covered in gold leaf.
We are very proud to welcoming our Honorable Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam. Everybody join, we get together, and we are welcoming our Honorable Prime Minister to Brunei Darussalam.
It's one of the iconic mosque here in Brunei. So our Prime Minister coming here and visiting this place, it's like thoroughly we really honored visiting.
The mosque's 52-meter high minaret makes it the tallest building in central Bandar Seri Begawan. The Indian diaspora is excited to meet the Prime Minister at the mosque.
Bruneian Indians or Indian Bruneians, we are waiting for our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Here we go, Modi, Modi, Modi.
We can't wait, as you can hear. Modi, Modi chants have already started just before his landing, and we want to be doing it tomorrow.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi lives in us because he is the energy for not the country, for the whole world.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the mosque is being seen as significant to boost people-to-people ties between India and the Islamic Sultanate of Brunei.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi had earlier visited mosques in various countries in Southeast Asia and West Asia. In those visits, he has taken the message of peace, piety, harmony and inclusiveness, all inherent to the faith of Islam, to the people and leadership of those countries. The Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque will soon be the latest addition to that list. With cameraman Kumar Datta, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Bandar Seri Begawan for DD India.
Ambassador Raghavan, thank you, sir. Appreciating your patience to staying with us. Thank you very much. Now, how do you see this visit of Prime Minister to the mosque? Like Munmun just mentioned, now this is not going to be for the first time that Prime Minister is going to be visiting a mosque, but here the choosing this country as a bilateral visit and paying a visit to the mosque, and I'm sure you noticed those reactions from the diaspora when they call themselves Brunei Indians and Indian Bruneians. I think that speaks a lot about the people-to-people contact between the two countries.
I think it's very important to understand that across the whole of Southeast Asia, including in Brunei, there is a great deal of diversity in cultural and religious terms, and the endeavor in each of these countries in different ways. But the endeavor is to build up a pluralistic society. In that context, the fact that the Prime Minister has chosen to visit a mosque, as he has done in other countries, reflects the pluralism and diversity and religious tolerance that we aspire towards in India too. So I would say it's a very good and important symbolic gesture.
Okay, Professor Bharadwaj, your thoughts?
No, I'm just adding with what Ambassador has talked about. You know, this Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei, we had very strong this religious cultural linkages, in a sense that Hinduism had gone first, then Buddhism has also been flourished in this region. But what most important is that Indo-Islamic culture.
Okay.
What is that Indo-Islamic culture inherits? That is known as Hanafi, and that is influenced by the Turco-Persian culture that has come to India, and from India it has been refined, shaped in a way, and that has gone to the Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei. And what is the significant aspects of this Indo-Islamic culture? They are very syncretic, very inclusive, and very I can say very secular in a way. All the Southeast Asian countries, you go either Brunei or Indonesia or Yogyakarta, and there all the temples are maintained by the Muslim community.
Indian
so the way mosques where it is also showing that the inclusive and secular cultural linkages.
India's civilizational footprints.
Of course, very deep, very deep.
Even when it comes to the Indo-Muslim culture that you're talking about.
Indo-Islamic
culture.
That is very closely, because it has been having taking all the values, ethos from Buddhism, from Hinduism, from Islam, and that has become very inclusive in a way that there is hardly any conflicts that you can see. That, as I talked, they are Hanafi. They are not Hanabali, that they do not talk about the fundamentalism, and they are not talking about that what Taliban's and they are talking. So they are very progressive and very liberal to the other religious and faiths in their surroundings. So you can see this is the fundamental reason what Ambassador also talked, that India finds very closer to the Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei. So, and that's why we are looking forward to have a cultural, because culture.
What do you think is the message there? What's the message?
No, message is there that the people, because what happened, we had a very historic relations, as I said, from the Chola dynasty itself.
Okay.
But because of the Cold War politics, the post-independent period, you can say that the relations with these countries, people-to-people contact, has become a victim of the Cold War politics. Now, after Look East policy, we started looking and focusing on that. But the most critical aspects, that the way Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi has taken the visit to Brunei at the first visit, and the way the India has pursued this Act East policy, that is the main motive, is that to bring all the lost linkages, the waves that has been enjoyed.
Reviving those lost civilizational linkages.
Of course.
I think I want to take this point to Ambassador Raghavan. Sir, your thoughts? Reviving those cultural linkages.
Well, it's very important to develop the point which Professor Bharadwaj made.
Yes, sir.
Just like Buddhism and Hinduism travel to Southeast Asia from India, it's often overlooked that Islam also came to Southeast Asia from India. The first Islamic influence in Southeast Asia, in fact, can be traced back to clerics and preachers and traders who had gone from the coast of Gujarat to Southeast Asia. So essentially, Islam, in establishing itself in Southeast Asia, followed the same track which Buddhism and Hinduism had established from about 2,000 years ago. So in that sense, it is possible to see a kind of compact or a kind of convergence in the way India and Southeast Asia have developed their civilizational links with Hinduism, Buddhism, and finally Islam, following by and large the same blueprint in terms of establishing deep roots in Southeast Asia. So whether you see Islam in Malaysia and in Brunei, or in Indonesia, or Buddhism in Cambodia, Laos, and the traces of past Hindu influences in Vietnam and in Indonesia, you can see more or less the same pattern replicating itself from about the 5th century AD till the 17th century AD. And I think this is something which is very unique.
I would just like to interrupt you here, sir. We are getting these live visuals of Prime Minister Modi's visit at the inauguration of the new Chancery of the High Commission of India, where Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi is being warmly greeted by the members of the diaspora community as well. He, of course, we saw was accompanied by Minister of External Affairs Dr. Jai Shankar. These are the visuals of the new Chancery of High Commission of India in Brunei being inaugurated by Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi. One of the important engagements of his day one at Brunei. Lighting of lamp, chanting of mantras, there Prime Minister Modi inaugurating the new Chancery of High Commission, accompanied by the National Security Advisor G. Doval as well as Minister of External Affairs Dr. Jai Shankar. So this whole presence of diaspora. Ambassador Raghavan, as we stay with these visuals, would you like to add to the fact that how the diaspora there has been an important and integral part of the bilateral ties and the significance of this particular event? It's symbolic in many ways. Inauguration of the Chancery in Brunei. Sir.
Well, the fact that the government of India has established its own High Commission premises and built its own chancery in Brunei is a very important milestone in diplomatic relations between India and Brunei. It's a milestone event in any diplomatic relationship when you establish your own premises, because it suggests a certain permanence to the relationship, and it is a forward-looking measure pointing to the enormous potential which is there to be harnessed.
Absolutely.
So I would say that the fact that we have constructed and built our own chancery, and this coincides with the 40th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relationship, is a wonderful moment for India-Brunei relations, and all of those concerned with bringing this about are to be warmly congratulated.
And this ceremony, which is historic, symbolic and milestone in many ways, as you rightly pointed out, Professor Bhardwaj, has been carried out in such a traditional Indian way. I mean, the place not only, decorated with bright lights, but also the lighting of lamp, which is are very significant to India's own culture. And this is important because also the diplomatic relations between India and Brunei, as Ambassador Raghavan pointed out, they go way back. In 1984, and Indian mission in Brunei was established in 1993, and since then the relationship has only moved from strength to strength, and today marking the 40 years of their diplomatic ties. So this event also assumes significance.
No, the most important aspect that I can see that the moral of the people, particularly that, citing Bharat Mata Ki Jai on the land of Brunei itself, is giving a strong moral, a strong presence of the Indian community, Indian people there. Why this chancery has particularly by Prime Minister going there, India's strong presence is now need of the time, because the way the Chinese diaspora community, the way the Chinese, they have very strong economic presence in this region, and the way the Chinese, they are coming in South China Sea, they have the disputes problems with that. India is there was some of the hopes to the Brunei people or Southeast Asian people that somebody will come and will balance what the Chinese are doing here, and they are looking India as a hope that would come culturally, that would come economically, and particularly what they would come as strategically in this region. And this is the region that last few years, or you can say that decades, that India has had given a strong footprints in defense cooperation, in space cooperation, in digital or in science cooperations with these Southeast Asian countries, because these countries, they are looking to have India. And particularly what I would say, that the way India has come out after G20 summit, that India has started demonstrating that we are the leader of the global South, or we are becoming the voice of the global South, and we will take care of all the concerns of the global South, either it's a global goods or global commons. And I think that these Southeast Asian countries, they are very hopeful towards India, that because India is a largest functional democracy, believes in being a law abiding country, believes in the dialogues and negotiations, and doesn't support any kind of violent behaviors by any state. So the Southeast Asian countries, they believe in the ethos and the values that India inherits historically, and this is the fundamental reasons that there are warmth in the relationship between India and Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei, and we are celebrating 40 years of the relationship between the two countries.
What does Brunei bring to the table for India, and vice versa? Ambassador Raghavan, you being the former ambassador to Singapore as well. Now, this being the first bilateral visit, what is the larger message as far as this part of the continent or the entire Indo-Pacific construct is concerned, amidst the conflict in the rest of the world, and Prime Minister of India choosing Brunei as his first stopover in this two-nation tour?
Well, I think the most important point which is being made is that each of the Southeast Asian countries are important and vital to our overall foreign policy approach. So I think the fact that we have established direct and strong relations with each South Asian country, that is important, and I think that is the principal message which goes out from this visit. Of course, in terms of tangibles and in terms of deliverables, there is a huge potential to India-Brunei relations. Reference was made earlier to cooperation in
defense and space.
Hydrocarbon and space and defense, apart from trade and commercial cooperation. Those are the necessary building blocks of any modern diplomatic relationship. But I think more than anything else is the overall approach that Southeast Asia is a vital part of our neighborhood. We deeply cherish our ancient...
I would like to just I've been told that these are the latest visuals also that we're going to just beam on our screens of Prime Minister Modi in Brunei. But sir, I wanted to basically understand from you what has really changed the broader canvas, India's Southeast Asia approach under the Prime Minister Modi's regime in the last decade or so.
See, what...
Ambassador Raghavan,
yeah,
and then,
sorry.
yes.
Part of the change is reflected in, the change in terminology from look east to
act east.
Act east. But I would look it in terms of a stronger continuity for the last 30 years that our foreign policy towards Southeast Asia has dovetailed to a great extent with the domestic changes which are underway in India, and particularly the economic transformation of South Asia. I think the recognition that the overall transformation in South Asia has to be part of a stronger convergence between Southeast Asia and South Asia. I think in that, India taking the lead through BIMSTEC, through our individual relations with Southeast Asian countries, through the India-ASEAN relationship. I think this is what I would say is the main takeaway from this visit.
Right. And let's also, for the benefit of the viewers of DD India, Ambassador Raghavan, please stay with us. Let's once again, broadcast those visuals of earlier today when Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the Chancery in Brunei there. As Ambassador Raghavan, Professor Bharadwaj rightly pointed out that this particular event is a milestone event in itself, considering the diplomatic ties between Brunei and India. They complete their 40 years and basically establishing stronger India credentials in a smaller but a significant Southeastern nation like Brunei. Professor Bharadwaj.
Of course, that is reflected the way this has been set up, Chancery has been set up, and the way the people are greeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi and meeting the people there. You can see these are the strong presence that Indian communities has. But I would add here, what Indian community are doing there, they are becoming very strong source of service sector.
Yes.
Particularly while you will see that Indian communities, they are skilled workers like the doctors, teachers, engineers. They have significantly contributing in the economic development of Southeast Asia, including Brunei. And there are also semi-skilled and unskilled labor forces. They are also becoming instrumental in making. And you can see that the strong presence of these three layers of the people, the skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled, they are connecting the two countries, connecting two economies, connecting two people. Now we are working where? We are connecting physically, that let's reach to the Southeast Asian countries through bilateral initiatives as well as the multilateral initiatives. India has come out with tri-nations road connectivity, connecting with Myanmar and Thailand, and that we are looking forward to connect it with the up to the Vietnam, and that I look forward that it would connect with the Brunei through sea routes. So these are the initiatives that can bring that will bring these countries closer. But what the most important, that the pressing areas where it can add to the economic development of all these countries is the economic and basically digital and technological cooperations between the two countries. So we are having number of agreements, we are having number of MOUs to enhance the energy cooperation.
And these, yes, and these already that you're talking about exist in the space of arts, sports, culture, defense, as Ambassador Raghavan rightly pointed out, to healthcare, health sector. And we are going to stay with this discussion, continue talking, having this conversation, the significance of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Brunei. Ambassador Raghavan and Professor Bharadwaj, please stay with us. We're getting some more reactions. Now, India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randir Jaiswal has briefed on Prime Minister Modi's engagements in Brunei. He has said that Prime Minister will be inaugurating the new building of the Indian High Commission, the visuals of which we just saw, and we are going to play this again. And also the visit to the Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. That's the next event. We are standing by for that. On Wednesday, Prime Minister will also be holding talks with Hassanal Bolkiah, the Sultan, and the Honorable Prime Minister of Brunei.
This evening, Prime Minister will be inaugurating the new Chancery premises of the High Commission of India. There again, he will get an opportunity to interact and greet the vibrant Indian community in Brunei. Thereafter, the Prime Minister will be visiting an iconic mosque built by the father of the present Sultan, His Majesty. At that event as well, there will be members of the Indian community present to welcome him and greet him. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister will hold talks with His Majesty the Sultan on the way forward for India-Brunei relationship. His visit, the visit of the Prime Minister to Brunei is in keeping with India's Act East policy and its vision for the Indo-Pacific.
And talking about the Indian diaspora, Brunei has 14,000 strong Indian diaspora, which is eager to welcome Prime Minister, which has already welcomed Prime Minister Modi, and they are going to be hosting him on the maiden bilateral visit to that country by an Indian Prime Minister, which makes this visit historical and unprecedented. DD India's Munmun Bhattacharya, who continues to send us live reportage from Brunei, has filed this report earlier. Take a look.
Members of the Indian diaspora as well as representatives of various Indian associations here are very excited ahead of the Prime Minister's visit. Let's talk to them about what they feel about the visit. How excited are you, sir?
We are too excited to receive Mr. Prime Minister, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. We are eagerly waiting for his landing in Brunei.
I'm looking forward to his visit, and it has spread a more Indianness. Though it was there, it is more Indianness here, and we are more than excited.
We are truly blessed to welcome our Modi ji, and it's my lifetime pride going to be get it tomorrow.
Every leader must learn from Modi ji that how much energy is he having. Sincere leader, sincerity, everyone must learn from him. He has not actually accumulated anything, only the country peoples.
The Indian community is extremely excited ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival in Brunei Darussalam. They're looking forward to getting a glimpse of him as soon as he arrives here. With cameraman Ankit, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Brunei Darussalam for DD India.
So, Indian diaspora, talking about importance and the significance, strong 14,500 at least, and the way they are integral and important to the bilateral construct. Why? Because they have a strong presence in the oil and gas sector, Professor Bhardwaj, in the healthcare sector, in industries, in construction. Very, very important component.
Yeah, they are just 14,000 people, but they constitute around 3 to 4% of the Brunei's population. But they have been contributing significantly for their economic development. As you correctly pointed out, and I have said about the health sector. Health sector is very strong, very important, significantly contributing worldwide from the Indian side. You can say the nurses, the doctors, they are also contributing in the Brunei's economy. So they are also looking the number of the good patients coming from the Southeast Asian countries to India for the treatment. This is one area where India is looking forward to have cooperation in health sector, and that could bring the two peoples closer. Second, very important is education. As I said that about the Indian communities, they are also teachers, professors in the universities and colleges. They are also significantly contributing and bringing, teaching the Indian culture along with what the Southeast Asian countries had been inherited. So these are the two very important areas that these are bringing. The third, what you correctly pointed out, that the construction business, of course, that Indians, the companies, they are involved, not only Southeast Asian countries, but in Central Asian countries also. They are building high rise and all that. So these are the important projects that India is looking forward to have more investments in Brunei, keeping the strong bondings, keeping the strong relationship that had been enjoyed last 40 years. And the new Chancery premise will definitely give a more opportunities for the Indians to visit there, and for the Bruneians, they can come here. But the one more area what I am looking forward, because all the Southeast Asian countries, either you take Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and all Myanmar, and that they are all all energy surplus countries, particularly hydrocarbon resources. They have huge, and India is looking to have energy cooperations with these all these countries, and we have been working in the past also. So, an Indian companies ONGC Videsh is investing. They have invested in Vietnam around $1 billion. They have invested in Myanmar. So, we are also looking to invest, the Indian companies ONGC Videsh, to invest in hydrocarbon sector of Brunei. That would definitely will give a strong energy cooperation between the two countries. And I have already talked about the clean energy. What India is aspiring. India is aspiring that we will have 50% dependencies on renewable sources, clean energy by 2030. How much we will achieve once we will have cooperations through, and there are projects, as I have talked about, from Australia, the northern Australia, to Indonesia, and then it is coming Singapore and Brunei and all these countries. If they can become partner in this clean energy drive, definitely the global warming, that is a pressing issue that India is always talking, because India is leading about the International Solar Alliance. India is also looking about the camps that climate justice. So, these all issues, critical issues, can be resolved while we will involve with the Southeast Asian countries in technology, in clean energy technology, and will have transmission corridors through sea and through land borders to up to the India. I am sure that these countries will come closer, because they are also looking the destination for the investments that already we are having.
It's also important to understand, Ambassador Raghavan, your take, what makes this important for the Brunei top leadership. Talking about the camaraderie between the two top leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Hassanal Bolkiah, the Sultan of Brunei, they have met, I think, twice on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, once in 2014 and then in 2017, and now on the invitation of Sultan, you have Prime Minister Modi visiting that part of the country. What makes this significant for Brunei?
India is one of the largest countries in its neighborhood, and it is natural that they would want to stabilize and strengthen and take forward their bilateral relationship with India. I think that is what explains the great enthusiasm with which the Prime Minister has been received, and the importance which they attach to his paying a bilateral visit over there on a special occasion to mark the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations being established. So for countries in Southeast Asia, their two important partners are China and India. And as I said earlier, they wish to have a balanced relationship. They don't want to get drawn into a zero-sum game because of growing US-China contestations and US-China competitions, and also are conscious of greater Chinese maritime and political assertion. So they are looking for balancing, and in that context, it is natural that they will look to India and strengthen relations with India in that overall geopolitical context. There are natural complementarities between India and Brunei. There's reference was made to the kind of technical assistance which we can provide the Indian diaspora present over there, that we rely on the hydrocarbons which Brunei has. There is a great deal of potential in healthcare and other sectors. So these natural complementarities are there and can be harnessed very effectively by a close focus of the relationship. I think this is what certainly is the takeaway which the Brunei leadership will also have when they look at it.
And from here on, how this relationship further consolidates, Professor Bharadwaj, it's important to also take a quick look at the agreements that are already in place as far as India and Brunei is concerned. We do have an agreement in culture, in arts and sports. Ambassador Raghavan, if you'd like to add to that, in defense. Now, in this visit, there's a lot of conversation going around in the defense cooperation in space. Would you like to, I mean, not really speculating, would you like to add more to that? The defense ties between the two countries. There have been exchanges earlier, yes.
the defense ties are an important aspect of our relations with many of the Southeast Asian countries. With Brunei, similarly, there have been ship visits in the past, naval visits, and the intention will be to try to increase these, because essentially defense ties are part of the balancing exercise which I referred to earlier, and also to take into account and to harness existing complementarities. So I would say that defense, space, apart from hydrocarbons, health, trade and economic cooperation, these are the vital bases on which the bilateral relationship can be constructed for the next 20-25 years when we look into the future.
Yes. Professor Bharadwaj, the cooperation, since sir is talking about the defense ties also, there have been regular official level exchanges, defense exchanges, naval and coast guard, that's Ambassador Raghavan mentioned about it, training and joint exercises and participation in each other's defense exhibitions and expositions. When you have this bilateral visit, the first bilateral visit, how do you see this consolidating these important defense ties between Brunei and India?
Yeah, you correctly pointed out. Let me think. There was one maritime exercise, the Milan, where
yes,
51 countries they participated in that Milan exercise. What is critical for Brunei and for India at this point? You know, the two. This is, if you will say, the trade. To Southeast Asian countries, or you can say
I
that
will
South
just
China
like to interrupt you here for 3 seconds. Indian contingent, sports contingent at the Paralympics continue with their good showing. Tweet by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Can we play that tweet again? I think India has won some more medals there. We have Prime Minister there in Brunei, but keeping a very close watch on the Indian contingent performing, in fact grabbing medals, and their spectacular performance at the Paralympics as well. Okay, you can continue with
your
point.
definitely. That is also we can congratulate, yes. But most important, so what I am looking at, the trade between South China Sea and through Indian Oceans, they take place through Malacca Strait. So there, you know, the security of South China Sea, because India and Indo-Pacific strategy will say what is that we all the countries of Southeast Asian or Indo-Pacific regions, they are looking free navigational rights. So that should not be anyhow, and they are also looking an open Indo-Pacific region. What it means that there should not be any kind of threat to their trade interest, their navigational interest in either in South China Sea, because China has disputes with the Southeast Asian countries. There are 9 dash line, now it has become 11 dash line.
Is this going to put China in a little uncomfortable spot?
Of course, not exactly, you can say, because the Chinese
but they
are very
watching
strongly,
it closely.
They are watching it closely, and the Chinese has very strong presence in Southeast Asian countries. So it is difficult for India to enter there, but the way we are greeted and the way we are visiting these Southeast Asian countries for the last 2 or 3 decades, that you can see that we are trying to come out with the shadows that the Chinese has created. Now, what is most important aspects that I am looking, because Chinese are also concerns about the trade, because around 85 to 90% Chinese energy trade take place through the Indian Ocean, through Malacca Strait, and India is making very strong presence in Indian Ocean. Though the Chinese, they are trying to counter it. So the trade is very significant. Navigational trade, navigational rights are very critical aspects for Brunei, particularly keeping the Chinese expansionist approach in South China Sea, because South China Sea is also very rich in
keeping
minerals.
Chinese expansionism, particularly in the South China Sea, at bay. Ambassador Raghavan, this is one such visit again on which, I mean, at least a country like China is going to keep a close watch.
Well, I think we should see things in context. Chinese assertion and Chinese expansionism, as you term it, in South China Sea and in the wider Indo-Pacific is only one aspect of our overall relationship with Southeast Asia. We shouldn't think of Southeast Asia only in terms of a Chinese prism. We have an independent relationship with Southeast Asia, and in particular with Brunei, which is historical, cultural, economic, and it has its own modern component. So we shouldn't let that bilateral aspect get dominated by one single external factor. The Chinese factor is important, but as I said, it is only one factor in our overall approach to relations with Brunei, as indeed with the whole of Southeast Asia. We shouldn't give it an excessive
importance.
As I said, all the countries in Southeast Asia, Brunei included, want to have a balanced presence of major powers in their region. They don't want to let one particular country or one particular group of countries have a dominant role, and therefore they look to other countries as external balancers. That is normal geopolitics, and we should also keep that in perspective, not necessarily look at everything from a zero-sum game point of view vis-a-vis China, because let's not forget, China is also India's largest trading partner. Just like as it is a vital trading partner for us, it is a vital economic and investment partner for the whole of Southeast Asia also.
Yes, Professor Bharadwaj, continue.
No, that's true. That's true what he has talked about. But I would say that China is the biggest challenge to India's eastward engagement. What we are looking, we are now Chinese there because there is complex interdependencies, particularly in the context of trade and investment is there. We are looking forward to have more, and this has been shifted, that India earlier was more focusing towards the Western world. Now India has started focusing towards the Eastern world, in fact, and that's why we are looking in the Act East policy also. We have extended and we have expanded Act East policy, keeping the Southeast Asian countries, China, Japan and South Korea into its fold, that let's also cultivate. So we are looking the Chinese definitely in a sense that Chinese let them complement, but it is not happening because the Chinese, the way they have made a significant presence in culture, in diaspora, in economic sector, and that has become a difficult task for India, because there were almost 50 years gap that India has faced with Southeast Asian countries. But the most important aspect that the Southeast Asian countries are worried and they are conscious about the way the Chinese, they have come out diplomatically and politically in the Southeast Asian countries, and this is the fundamental reason that all these Southeast Asian countries are looking towards Quad, looking towards the emerging Indo-Pacific strategy, so that, and they are very hopeful about the India's presence because of the close cultural linkages, because of the ethos and values that we have shared historically, civilizationally, and this is the fundamental reasons that Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi is greeted and welcomed warmly in Brunei in his visit, and this is the reason that we are having this new chancellery in this race, so that India can have more stronger presence in Southeast Asian countries. I am sure that would bring a strong bondage or bondings between the two peoples and between the two countries, and new areas, particularly that keeping the global goods and global common concerns into minds, that the two countries will cooperate in constructive way.
Yes. Just to understand further the significance of Brunei as far as India and India's outreach to ASEAN is concerned, Ambassador Raghavan, over a period of time, how do you define the trajectory of the relationship between India and Brunei and the role it played in early say 2014, 15, 16 in terms of building that bridge between India and the rest of the ASEAN constructor as an ASEAN coordinator?
Well, I think over a period of time, the relationship has grown much stronger. This is in large part due to bilateral initiatives on both sides, but also because of the fact that India takes a great deal of interest in ASEAN, now is a full dialogue partner, regularly attends all ASEAN summits and East Asia summits, in which Brunei, as the coordinator, has played a major role. So these are both, bilateral and multilateral factors have strengthened the overall texture of the relationship between India and Brunei. So if one compares the situation today with, let's say, 2 or 3 decades earlier, clearly there is a major change because the intensity of our exchanges with the whole of Southeast Asia has increased very substantially. I think the fact that the Prime Minister, there are a number of important optical takeaways from the current visit, that this commemorates the 40 years of the establishment of diplomatic relations, that he has inaugurated a new chancery for the Indian High Commission, that this is the first ever bilateral visit. So I would say these are very important and significant takeaways, and they show as to how much the relationship has strengthened when we look at it evolving over a period of time.
You described the inauguration of Chancery Ambassador Raghavan, being a former ambassador. What you say carries tremendous amount of weight. Chancery inauguration is symbolic, but a milestone event as far as the Brunei-India relationship is concerned. An important event reinforcing India's credentials diplomatically in Brunei?
It's a milestone event in any diplomatic relationship. When you look at diplomatic relationships, you define milestones in terms of the establishment of formal diplomatic relations by high-level head of government or head of state level visits, but also in terms of establishing permanent chanceries. So I think the fact that we have established our own premises in the capital is a very important symbolic takeaway in the overall context of India-Brunei relations.
Professor Bharadwaj, your take?
No, definitely it is very significant. While we are keeping looking the Southeast Asian countries, we have around 122 billion trades with Southeast Asian countries, and new chancery definitely will strengthen, give more space.
These
for
are the
diplomatic
visuals. I'll just interrupt you here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, is going to be visiting the Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. These are the visuals of Prime Minister's arrival earlier.
तो ज़बरदस्त
Okay,
उत्साह का
so
माहौल
these were some of the moments, snippets, in fact, of the Prime Minister Modi's grand welcome, ceremonial and red carpet welcome upon his arrival. He was received by the Prince of Brunei, and we also saw, in fact, we can play those visuals again as we continue to discuss this with Ambassador Raghavan and Professor Bharadwaj, the play out of Brunei national anthem and Indian national anthem, and very overwhelming to see Indian tricolour fluttering high there on the Brunei soil and amidst the chanting of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. And if you remember, Ambassador Raghavan, one of the diaspora members, the Indian, he spoke about Little India there and Brunei Indians and Indian, you're also smiling, Brunei Indians and Indian Brunei theirs, and he says that Prime Minister Modi, and I quote, has brought more Indianness to Brunei.
Well, the Indian diaspora always is very enthusiastic about high-level visits, and it is natural that they are very excited that the Prime Minister is visiting Brunei. The diaspora on the whole has now, it is an established part of our overall bilateral diplomacy, and that it's a presence in all important events, bilateral events or engagements which take place. Which is good because they have a certain, whether they are Indian nationals or not, they have a certain affinity with their mother country.
Absolutely.
And that is something which we should always nurture and cherish. So
Ambassador Raghavan, since you're talking about diaspora, I mean, if you could just, talk about what does the strong presence of Indian diaspora, not only in a country like Brunei, but otherwise also, how this whole Indian diaspora has become a part of the diplomatic diary of most of Prime Minister's visit, in fact almost all, where there's not only an overwhelming response, but you get to see so much of Indianness and Little India in every nook and corner of the country, even in a country like Brunei. And what makes it very integral to further bolster the diplomatics between the two countries, here in this case Brunei?
Well, the diaspora is always a kind of bridge between India and the country that they are settled in, because I think that gentleman put it very evocatively when he said that we carry a little India with us. So it is a natural kind of bridge, and it is very, very important in firming up or in consolidating cultural ties and social ties. I think it's useful to remember that we should not give an exaggerated role to this. I think diasporic relations have to be cherished and nurtured for their own sake. But we shouldn't think that they can play a larger-than-life role, because some people talk about diasporic relations as also having a strategic aspect. I think that is a bit far-fetched. But I think diasporic connections have to be nurtured and cherished for their own sake, because diasporas always want to have strong relations between the country they live in and India.
But the fact, the way this whole, so the fact that this whole diaspora thing, the way it has come to fore in the last decade, has that made a world of difference or any change?
I think it has made a big difference, because the government has sought to move the diasporic events to the center of the diplomatic frame, and that's a good thing. But it is also it's also an older process. So, the Prasar Bharati Divas has been there for many years, and the Prasar Bharati Awards, and reaching out to diasporas and encouraging them to travel to India. So I would see it as a much older process, but we are seeing the fruits of that process and the harvest of that process coming up now because of the vital role the diaspora plays as a bridge between the two countries.
Yes, Professor Bharadwaj, and also for just to tell our viewers, these were it's a very beautiful and moving visuals tweeted by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi itself. And we are going to be beaming some more visuals as we get them from Brunei. The next event being Prime Minister Modi's visit to mosque. That is also very important. Ali Saifuddin Mosque at the Bandar Seri Begawan. That's the next event that's lined up. But here you have Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi being accorded ceremonial and red carpet welcome, inspecting the guard of honor there. He was received by the Prince of Brunei, and he was warmly greeted by the members of the Indian diaspora. Visuals earlier when Prime Minister arrived at the capital city of Brunei, Bandar Seri Begawan. Welcomed and greeted by the top leadership of Brunei. Crown Prince of Brunei. Yes, Professor Bharadwaj, go ahead.
No, yeah, let me add what Ambassador was talking about, that, being a civilizational state, India is a good example of a soft power, a good case study of a soft power. And India's different cultural institutions like yoga, like Bollywood. The Indian movies are very popular in many of the Southeast Asian countries. You just go in and take any flight of South, and the people, they love watching Indian movies and serials, and now this web series and all that. Dangal was very popular in all Southeast Asian countries and include China.
Yes.
So India's this civilizational cultural heritage has been converted into its foreign policy, that we are expanding, we are connecting with the people, that what the Indians presents there, but what the locals, the natives are there, they are coming closer because of this, the institutions of soft power. That they have been instrumental bringing these, though China is also a civilizational state and India is a civilizational state, but there is no clash of civilization in between two. There are conflicting interests on economic and military, and those are issues, but there are not cultural conflicts between the two countries. They are complementing each other's historically. When you will go to Henchang, Payan and that century, and today
Brunei,
also,
yes.
that these culture, but India is more colorful, more approachable. The culture is more accommodative, more tolerant, more secular, more inclusive. So people are taking very warmly because of the historical linkages that we have talked initially, that being the Buddhism from the India, being the Hinduism has been gone from India, and the way the names of all the Southeast Asian countries like Singapore. What do you mean Singa, the land of lion? Lion
That's
is in
going
India.
to be the next
so you
stop
can
of
see
Prime
that
Minister.
next
Yes.
visit is there, but my point is there that these all the places and that has historical civilizational linkages that has been you can say re-energized by the political diplomatic initiatives, that, and this is the reason that Prime Minister Modi had a grand ceremonial welcome in Brunei, and this is the reason that the people are warmly participating in these ceremony and welcoming Indian Prime Minister, because we had very strong historical, cultural understanding and linkages that has now the time has come with the emerging different strategic and economic.
Yes. In fact, since we do have a former diplomat, Ambassador Raghavan there, would you add more to that, sir? As far as the top leadership, Indian Prime Minister and Brunei Sultan, earlier on couple of occasions, on various occasions in 2014, 2017, 2018, they have met on the sidelines, and in this very first ever bilateral, the two leaders are going to have the personal exchange of words and thoughts.
I think it will certainly consolidate the relationship further, because a standalone bilateral visit certainly has a good impact and always has a major impact on the two countries concerned. So I would say that looking ahead, this visit will provide a very strong stepping stone to further consolidation and enhancing of the bilateral relationship in different fields. I think the fact that the Prime Minister is spending so much time in Brunei is also significant, because it enables him then to develop a stronger relationship with his counterparts, and it also gives a very strong optical statement about the importance which India attaches to India-Brunei relations. I think we should not forget that the fact that the visit takes place to commemorate 40 years of diplomatic relations, and the fact that a new chancery is being inaugurated during this visit are very important statements in terms of symbolic significance, because what they underline is that India attaches a great deal of importance to its relationship with Brunei, and that it cherishes this relationship.
What are the newer sectors that the both countries, Ambassador Raghavan, would like to explore in terms of cooperation?
I think there is a certain fundamental complementarity in different sectors, beginning with the hydrocarbon requirements, because we have energy requirements, we have an energy security perspective, and therefore the hydrocarbon imports from Brunei are important. But there's also cooperation in frontier areas such as space, because we have set up a space tracking center in Brunei. There is a great deal of potential in expanding defense cooperation, apart from expanding trade and economic and investment cooperation. I think the fact that there is such a significant outreach to the Indian diaspora also underlines the importance which we place on maintaining the older civilizational relationship. Now, this civilizational relationship is 2 millennium old, but it has a vital role even in today's context. So it is good that the Prime Minister is visiting a mosque, because we should never forget that Islam in Southeast Asia also was a part of the Indian influences, just like Buddhism and Hinduism were. Islam also went to Southeast Asia from India.
Yes. India being central to Professor Bharadwaj, because that's the next event we are standing by, Prime Minister's visit to the very famous mosque, Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Bandar Seri Begawan, one of the most beautiful, not only in terms of the tourist attraction, but the kind of legacy it carries. That India being central to the entire Indo-Islam construct. And this visit, though, like Munmun, our reporter, she was talking about the fact that this is not for the first time that the Prime Minister has visited a mosque, paid a visit to a mosque, but here in the context of Brunei and in this particular mosque.
You know, how Islam, let me give a little bit background, how Islam came. Islam came two ways. One is the trading routes through the ocean, and the another has come from the Turco-Persian. What deep-rooted Islamic ethos and cultures that has been grown up in India had come from the Turco-Persian cultural ethos and values. And this Turco-Persian ethos and cultural values has been accommodated, consolidated along with the Buddhism, Hinduism, and the other ethos and other values of the native society. This has gone to the Southeast Asian countries again with the trade, because we had very strong trade linkages with Southeast Asian countries. The spice trade had been very significantly traded to the Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei. So you can see that Islam and the ethos and values, what I talk about Indo-Islamic culture, that I talk about, they are Hanafis. They are very inclusive, they are very syncretic, having the ethos and values of all the cultural antecedents that has been come in this, developed in this, on this land, has gone to the Southeast Asian countries, not only in Brunei and the other Southeast Asian, Indonesia, I talked about Yogyakarta and Malaysia and all that. So visiting this mosque, of course, it is giving further, it has further proved that India believes in secular, inclusive ethos and values, and we have very strong tolerance towards each other, towards other faith people, and that India has been proved throughout the history and throughout that after independence also, that we have been living together. And now you can see the way India had been instrumental promoting these ethos and values, not only in South Asia, but other neighboring and extended neighbors, including Brunei. So the visit of Prime Minister is symbolizing that we are having faith and respect to the each faiths and each religions.
The secular credentials of India and the tolerance.
Yes. That is also very syncretic, very inclusive, that beliefs, and we find very closer to the Southeast Asian countries. While going visiting to any of the Southeast Asian countries, you will find that somewhere you are in either in South India, or somehow you are in the Northeast India, or you can say North India. So that different parts will give you and will remind you your cultural roots in Southeast Asian countries, including Brunei. And then you will go to mosque, and then you will find that people, we are happy. We used to go and respect each other's faith, and including going to mosque, including going to temple, and all the places where the people's faith are involved.
Ambassador Raghavan, would you like to add to that, sir?
Well, I think it is important that India project its pluralism and its diversity and its secularism to the outside world, and the Prime Minister's visit to the mosque in Brunei will certainly underwrite that message, that we attach importance to our own pluralistic and secular heritage. As I said, it's important to remember that Islam in Southeast Asia followed the same trajectory to establish itself as Buddhism and Hinduism had done before Islam, and each of these three major religions made their way to Southeast Asia from India. So in that sense, the Indian the influence of Indic culture really has followed a very similar trajectory over the past 2000 years, and it is something we should never stop reiterating in our interactions with the Islamic countries in Southeast Asia.
They inaugurated the new chancery. The viewers who have just joined us, in fact, we can play out those visuals, and that is also very important, the inauguration of the chancery in Brunei, which further cements the diplomatic ties between India and Brunei. Remember, the both countries are marking or celebrating their diplomatic relationship, which started some 40 years ago or 4 decades ago, and now with this first ever bilateral visit paid by any Indian Prime Minister, and this being paid by Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi, takes this relationship to next level. These are the visuals of Prime Minister Modi inaugurating the new Chancery building in the diplomatic enclave of the capital of Brunei, Bandar Seri Begawan, and on the very first day of his visit on Tuesday, that is today, Prime Minister unveiled the plaque you can see on your screens. Also lit the ceremonial lamp. That's a very traditional Indian way of inaugurating or starting something very auspicious, Professor Bhardwaj, you would agree. And then also he was warmly and overwhelmingly warmly greeted by the members of the Indian community or Indian diaspora community there. Approximately 14,500 Indians are living in Brunei Darussalam, engaged in various business activities, health sector, oil, gas, natural gas sectors, further strengthening the bilateral ties. Oil and gas industries are very important there. Lighting of lamp there earlier when Prime Minister inaugurated the Chancery in the presence of External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval. Large number of Indian diaspora, they turned in large numbers to receive Prime Minister at the Chancery itself and also at the hotel upon his arrival. It's important to tell our viewers that the Indian High Commission will now function from the newly inaugurated building amidst the chanting of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Diaspora members greeting Prime Minister Modi. Ambassador Raghavan, as you, I think, mentioned earlier, we were talking about it. Why is this important and a milestone event as far as diplomatics between India and Brunei is concerned? From this very building that was inaugurated by the Prime Minister a while back, the visuals of which are right on your screens, the Indian High Commission will be now functioning from the newly inaugurated building, sir.
Well, the establishment of one's own diplomatic premises in any country is a milestone event, because it suggests that we attach great importance to our relationship, and we believe that our relationship has a permanent feature attached to it. So rather than functioning from a rented or a leased premises, when you construct and move into your own chancery, it's a very important symbolic statement. It also enables the High Commission to function much more effectively, because you are now in a space which has been customized. So all your different activities, whether diplomatic activities or public outreach activities or visa and consular related services, can be discharged much more effectively without, and there is much greater ease of for the users of these facilities. So for all these reasons, establishing your own chancery is a very important statement. And the fact that we have now, the Prime Minister has inaugurated our own chancery building, that it suggests a certain optical significance we attach to our relationship with Brunei, because the building is being inaugurated during the 40th.
Live visuals from Brunei. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Bandar Seri Begawan. They're being greeted again by the members of the diaspora community. Historical visit by Prime Minister, first ever bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister. Visuals of Prime Minister's visit to Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. This mosque was built and named after the present Sultan's father, who had said that he was influenced by India's Mughal architecture, particularly the Taj Mahal. Visuals of the Grand Mosque. Audio-visual presentation there, signifying the legacy of the mosque and the history associated with it. Prime Minister being presented by the Prime Minister being greeted by the members there, visiting Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. The mosque was built and named after the present Sultan's father, as we just told you. Arrival shots of Prime Minister there in the mosque premises. It was completed in 1958, and this mosque is often considered as one of the most beautiful mosques in the entire Asia-Pacific region. It is a place of worship for the Muslim community there, highly revered place there, and a major historical site as well, and besides that, a famous tourist attraction as well. The mosque visit, one of the key engagements of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Modi's first ever bilateral visit to Brunei on day one. Greeted by the members of the mosque community, perhaps they would have their own setup there, where Prime Minister is being shown the audio-visual presentation. As we stay with these visuals, Professor Bhardwaj, now, again, going back to that important aspect, that what is the larger message here?
No, one thing is very clear, that the cultural and religious linkages has been witnessed by the people. The two countries, they have seen. What it would lead? It would lead to the new sectors. What are the new sectors? That tourism.
The cultural linkages point, the design of this mosque was heavily influenced by the Mughal architecture in India. I think that is a very important point. That
I was indicating from the very beginning, that the Indo-Islamic culture.
So Taj Mahal,
the similarity with Taj Mahal and the Indo-Islamic cultures that has been inherited from the Turco-Persian culture in this and flourished in this region. But this is all Indian version. And this is the fundamental reasons that you can see that much tolerance, much inclusiveness in the Southeast Asian religious faiths and to each others, either the Buddhist or the Hindu or that. And you know, that is why I am talking that this visit will definitely, or particularly visiting to this mosque, will increase tourism, and the Indians will definitely visit to the largest mosque of Southeast Asian countries. The cultural connect, then I said the physical connect, and then I said commercial connect, but the most important aspect that connect is the fourth C is the capacity building. The capacity building will, how the capacity will, that when you will have new chancellery, will have visa liberalization, when you have more exposure to the people about the culture, about the society, and it would flourish the business, particularly like I said that spice trade had been very historical, but the stone business is also very significant between India and Brunei. And then you can also see that we are also looking the new areas in the commercial connect that I was indicating about the energy sectors, the digital divides that within the global south as well, that will meet the knowledge divide, that will also meet, and that will enhance the capacity of the two countries to flourish, to work together, and to have better commercial and economic and investmental tie for the better global south.
Okay, you know the beauty about this mosque, not only the Ambassador Raghavan, let's have his thoughts also on this particular aspect of Prime Minister's visit. The influence of the Mughal architecture of India on this mosque, which is very integral to the Bruneian culture, and the way we saw the management of the mosque warmly receiving the Prime Minister, their Prime Minister signing the visitors book. In fact, if you could just play those shots again, as Ambassador Raghavan can talk about the significance and the larger message and the optics of this particular event.
Well, I think the aesthetics of the mosque are well known. The larger message, of course, is that Islam is an integral part of India's worldview, and we have to see that India sees Islam as integral to its own identity, and much as India was represented in Southeast Asia in ancient history through Buddhism and Hinduism, it was also represented in much the same way by Islam, because all three of these religions traveled to Southeast Asia, including to Brunei from India. The first Islamic influences in Southeast Asia were on account of traders and Islamic preachers going from the coast of Gujarat to those two places in Southeast Asia and setting up settlements over there, much in the same way as Buddhism and Hinduism had traveled to that region. So the fact that Islam is integral to India's worldview is an essential part of our outreach to all Islamic countries, that
right, sir.
We attach the highest possible importance.
Absolutely.
To our pluralism
Ambassador
and
Raghavan,
diversity.
yes, sir. Ambassador Raghavan, how do you see this boosting significantly the people-to-people ties between India and the Islamic Sultanate of Brunei?
I think it will, the Prime Minister's visit will promote Brunei as a tourism destination from India, because Indians traveling to Southeast Asia has become a very, very prominent factor in the tourism economy of these countries. And the fact that Indians may start traveling to Brunei, and Brunei nationals coming to India to visit India for various reasons, but also to visit principal sites of Islamic heritage in India. You mentioned the aesthetic impact of the Taj Mahal and of other Islamic structures in India in the aesthetics of this mosque. I think the fact that if we can encourage people from Brunei to come to India and visit and to see India's rich Islamic heritage, that will be a big plus in establishing stronger people-to-people ties between India and Brunei.
The grand opulence of the mosque of Brunei, which is situated in the capital, Bandar Seri Begawan, Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque on your screens. In fact, the Sultanate Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque takes its name from its builder, who is the father of the present Sultan and his predecessor, Sultan Umar Ali Saifuddin. In fact, he was the 28th Sultan of Brunei, and the other significant aspect of this mosque is that it's been deeply and grandly influenced by the Indian Mughal architecture, and it took 4 years to build. And the visuals of Prime Minister's arrival at the premises of the mosque be not only greeted by the members of the Indian diaspora there as well, but also the management of the Umar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Bandar Seri Begawan. This is seen as a significant event as well in terms of boosting the people-to-people connect between two countries, India and the Islamic Sultanate of Brunei. The mosque's 52-meter high minaret makes it the tallest building in the central Bandar Seri Begawan city, which is the capital of Brunei. Prime Minister earlier also signed the visitors book there, and he was in fact shown the audiovisual presentation. I believe that was Professor Bharadwaj, the legacy, the old days when the mosque, I think the mosque took 4 years. This only explains the magnificence of this particular monument in the heart of the capital of Brunei.
Certainly the way...
It's important to also have this conversation, Ambassador Raghavan, if you could hear me, that this is not an isolated event where Prime Minister has visited a mosque in any foreign country. In fact, earlier in Southeast Asia and in West Asia, such as Egypt, Indonesia, Singapore, Oman and UAE. And since we have Mr. Raghavan, Ambassador Raghavan, the former ambassador to Singapore with us, sir, this only reiterates India's message to the world of that of peace, harmony and inclusiveness, secularity and tolerance. Ambassador Raghavan.
Yes, I think we have to project and we have to convey to the world that pluralism, inclusiveness and respect for diversity, whether ethnic, linguistic or religious, is integral to our identity as Indians. I think the more the world understands this essential feature of our Indian identity, the stronger will be their appreciation of India's position in the world today. So it is very good that the Prime Minister has visited this mosque, and as he has done so in many other countries, it sends that message that in India we stand for diversity, pluralism, secularism and for inclusiveness. And I think this is a message which will resonate very strongly in Southeast Asia too, because those are the very ideals by which those countries, the countries of Southeast Asia, have also sought to build their societies and their polities.
And mosque being so inherent to the faith of Islam in these countries that we are talking about, Professor Bharadwaj, to the people and to the leadership of these countries is also a very important aspect that is being highlighted by this visit.
No,
this particular event as the itinerary of Prime Minister.
Definitely, you know, particularly while you are talking about the Asian society, where it's very cultural, it's a faith-based society. And wherever in the country like Brunei, if you're visiting there and if you're not visiting the mosque, you know, it's paying the respect to the people.
Absolutely.
It's paying the respect to their culture, paying the respect to their faith. So what the gesture Prime Minister Narendra Modi has shown, that I am respecting your faith as you are respecting our faith. And this gives this ethos and values comes from the Indian culture, Indian society, that we are respecting each other. And this has been clearly that the way he has been there and giving enough time to visit mosque, you know, itself is reflecting that yes, we are very close to each other. But very interesting fact, I tell you.
Sure.
When you are going to, you know, I have seen that Borobudur temple and Permanent temple in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, very close to, is bordering with the Brunei. that Borobudur temple and the Prabhanan temple are maintained by the Muslim community.
Okay.
They are, so you know, the tolerance towards each other and respecting each other's faith is reflected in entire Southeast Asian countries, and this is very much reflecting while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting to Brunei and going to this mosque, historic mosque that has been historic, and you can see that 4 years had been taken to construct this mosque, and is very close to the Indian Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
You know,
the architecture is influenced by the Mughal architecture of India.
Of course, influence, that means it's very close to influence. Then in the building, you are bringing that Indian ethos and values.
Again, bringing Indianness. More Indianness to Brunei. Before we wrap up this broadcast, Ambassador Raghavan, day one, how do you sum up, and overall also this visit, how does this take the relationship between India and Brunei to level next, this being the first bilateral by an Indian Prime Minister?
I think the visit is a very important, marks a very important stage in India-Brunei relations. It is to commemorate 40 years of the establishment of diplomatic relations, and to do so, the Prime Minister made a bilateral visit. He inaugurated a newly constructed Chancery building, and he's spending a great deal of time in Brunei to establish a personal relationship with the leadership there, and also convey to them that India attaches importance to its relationship with Brunei. I think for all these reasons, and the fact that there are so many complementarities and there is an enormous potential in bilateral relations, there are also geopolitical and strategic advantages. I think for all of this, all of these reasons, the Prime Minister's visit at this particular conjuncture is a very important occasion and a milestone in India-Brunei relations.
Okay, on that note, in fact, Professor Bharadwaj, a quick one and then we'll wrap up.
Now, I would say it would strengthen cultural connect, it would strengthen physical connect, commercial connect, and will develop capacity building, and that would explore new areas of cooperation.
And further bolster people-to-people contact.
Looking forward and strengthening the strategic partnership with Brunei. I am sure that India will have very strong presence, and this visit will complement that strong.
Like one of the diaspora members pointed out, the Indian Brunei's and the Brunei Indians.
Brunei Indians. Yeah, that was also very,
I think that sums it all. Ambassador Raghavan, such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast, and also thank you, Professor Bharadwaj. Thanks a lot. And from me and my entire team, thank you for tuning in to our special broadcast, Prime Minister Modi in Brunei. Our news and updates continue on your channel, DD India. Stay with us. Thank you.